Okay, it is 8:01. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Franklin Redevelopment Commission, and we'll start off with the roll call. Brian Debbie. Here. Paul Buny. Here. Drew Eggers. Here. Buchan is here. Christy Ott. Here. Richard Wirtz. Here. We have everybody here, so we do have a quorum. Just for those that are maybe new to the meetings, to my right is Krista Linke, and she's the Director of Economic Development, Community Development for the City of Franklin. And to my left is Jim Admire of the firm of Shaftstall and Admire, who's pinch hitting today, but he's not. This is not his first time. Right? Yeah, he's not his first time here. So, welcome, Jim. So, we're going to kind of move the meeting order around a little bit. Essentially, I know the mayor has you have some stuff going on about 9, so we want to make sure we get you in front of everybody on all the things we need to talk about today. So you might have to bear with me if you're following along with an agenda. But it won't be too much trouble, except for maybe we take some minutes, but we'll get through that. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from the May 21st, 2019 meeting. Move to approve. Second. Okay. It's either Wirtz or Eggers on the second on that, but any discussion on that? Those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It is approved. Now we're going to go into old business, and this is one of the first ones. This is a presentation for overlapping taxing units. And I'm going to turn to Krista Linke to kind of walk us through that. The mayor is going to be involved in this as well, I believe. Is that correct? So as needed.
Jeff Peters is here also with Peters Municipal Consultants if you have any questions. But I'm going to bring these up on the screen. You also, I gave you handouts. So this is the cover page of the document that I gave you. This is what it looks like. It's stapled. And Jeff prepared this. So there's a new state law this year that requires redevelopment commissions to give a report annually to other overlapping taxing units. And they were notified of this presentation, and I'm happy to see some of them in the audience. I appreciate you coming out to listen to this. This presentation was previously given by Rob Shaftstall at the City Council meeting on June 3rd. And so he did an excellent job. I was not in attendance. I've summarized his presentation, and I'm going to attempt to walk you through it this time. So you have a handout, and I'm going to bring it up over here. It's broken down first by township. So there's Franklin Township results, and then there's Needham Township results, and then they're combined. So this first page is for Franklin Township. And Jeff summarized the conclusions for this analysis. They're at the end. So I think what's most important is the last sentence on the last page. And so if you look at the last page, it talks about the Redevelopment Commission capturing real estate taxes in these allocation areas. And from these allocation areas, the Redevelopment Commission gets close to $4 million per year. That's our revenue that we receive through our TIF districts. And if we didn't do that, we would release back into the overall taxing units approximately $76 million of assessed value. And that's this number here. So 2019 TIF is that $76 million here. So if we did that, and if we didn't do that, the other taxing units would only be able to generate about $600,000 total. So the way these calculations work, because of the circuit breakers, we are able to collect money in these TIF districts that generate approximately $4 million of revenue for us. And if they were divided out among all the taxing entities, I'm going to walk you through those calculations. And the way Rob explained it is that these calculations, I'm not exactly sure, I don't pretend to understand, hopefully Jeff does and maybe the auditor's office does, how to do these calculations, but they're formulas, and there isn't a direct, if you take $1 out of a pot of money for a taxing entity, it doesn't directly affect dollar for dollar. those taxing entities. So they're all linked, and if you take a piece of property off the assessed value, you're going to change the circuit breaker, the tax rates. It's very complicated. I don't pretend to understand any of that exactly, so hopefully Jeff can answer those questions if we have them. So with Jeff's help, he's done these calculations, and he's showing us that by the Redevelopment Commission keeping this assessed value in our allocation areas, we make, including the US 31 TIF district, we make about $5 million in revenue in various ways. But if we were to give up that assessed value, everybody else, the other combined taxing units, would only bring in $600,000 in taxing revenue. So for us as a community, there's really no other better financial mechanism going right now than to let the Redevelopment Commission keep working, and if you don't, it's going to trickle back to the other taxing units, but the impact is not dollar for dollar like most people think. So you've got the packet. It shows you, this page shows you, this is page 3, and it shows you the assessed value here that I mentioned earlier, the 76 million. And if we were to release that back to the other taxing units, there's this black box below that shows you the circuit breaker, this estimated reduction of circuit breaker, so it's $462,882. And so that shows you how it's divided out. So the benefit for Franklin Township of the other taxing units would be a total of $462,882. And there's some other minor tax implications that are calculated. So at the bottom of that page, the total impact here, so this is the circuit breaker in this column here, and then the total impact, so for Johnson County, they would receive an additional $72,000. Franklin Township, $2,800. Franklin City would be $228,499. Franklin School, $211,000. Johnson County Library, $9,700, and then Johnson County Solid Waste, $1,078, for a total of $525,000. So that explains the Franklin Township. The calculations are the same for Needham Township. And Needham Township is mostly made up of our Franklin Tech Park. So the next page, page 4, shows you the assessed value in Needham Township is $78,195,000. So that's shown there on that page. And then the estimated reduction of the circuit breaker here is much less. It's $17,055. And so if you go to the bottom of that page, this is the tax impact if that assessed value were released back and not captured in those TIF districts. So $30,024 for Johnson County, Needham Township, $42, Franklin City, $43,000, Franklin Schools, $7,800, Johnson County Library, $362, and Johnson County Solid Waste, $40, for a total of $81,576. So page 5 shows these two districts combined on this report. So these are those numbers that I just read off to you, and then the total impact with those two numbers combined is $607,564. And so as the Redevelopment Commission, I would absolutely advocate that what we're doing through these examples, if we no longer collected any TIF, the Johnson County Library, for example, would receive an additional $10,000 per year. So I would argue that what we are doing benefits these other taxing entities by spending money in these areas that taxes aren't collected in. So we have the integrated TIF, as most of you are aware. We can spend money outside of the areas where TIF is collected. And by doing that, we're actually raising the assessed values in those areas and helping other taxing units get more money, which offsets the impact of our TIF districts, because we're spending money in the right places and doing projects that increases the overall assessed value. And as Rob stated, he used the analogy of, by doing this, all ships rise. So there's a commentary that Jeff prepared on page 6 that talks about exactly this. I think it's worth reading. It explains further why there is not a dollar for dollar return to the other taxing units. So the tax impact analysis is really, I think, is something that we've never really delved into before. I think it's really important for us to understand. And I'm sure that there's questions about this, and I don't know if now would be a good time if anybody has questions, or I know Jeff's here. If anybody wants to ask questions about that, we can take questions.
Jeff, just so I understand, you can talk or get up and talk, or whatever. You might as well go on up there. We've worked with Jeff for a number of years. He does a very good job of analyzing all of our tax receipts and expenditures, and has a grasp of where everything goes. The thing I'm gaining from this report is that the tax impact of having these taxes paid into the TIF is blunted somewhat due to the circuit breakers. Am I on the right track there? In other words, if we didn't have the TIFs, it would still be limited due to the circuit breakers of what the schools and so forth would be receiving.
It would, but even more along those lines is that, you know, a lot of people, like Krista said, they believe that, hey, if you quit collecting the TIF money, it'll go back dollar for dollar to those taxing units. And that's just not the way it works. And the bigger portion of that is that entire tax structure of how the overlapping taxing units collect their money. They're limited by maximum levies for operations by state statute. The other levies they have out there are typically for debt service, so they're principal and interest based. So if you throw the assessed value back in there, what you do is just drive the rate down for all of those funds, and everybody pays a little bit less.
Okay.
Other than rate-driven funds, which a couple of units of government have rate-driven funds, so if you drop another $80 million in the assessed value of the tax base, then they'll collect a little bit more tax. So that's kind of the right-hand total tax part. But the other thing that gets influenced on that is if we drop the tax rates for all units of government in the taxing district in whole, we then have less individual taxpayers that go above the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps. So there's more money there to be distributed to those units of government. And those are the circuit breaker parts in that left-hand column of the 479,000. But again, like I said, the big takeaway from this is, you know, if you were to give up everything you do in the redevelopment realm, you're only going to give back a benefit of about $600,000 to the local units of government, where you can do far beyond that amount in your activities of economic development, redevelopment. One of the things that, you know, I don't know that we could ever measure would be over the activities that you've done, how much assessed value have you generated and tax dollars back to all those units of government over the time period that you've been in existence. That would be a really neat number.
Franklin, I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think Franklin is unique in that we took advantage of an opportunity to create these integrated areas, which allows us to spend TIF dollars in areas that are not traditionally spent, such as the downtown or along US 31. Well, it's a little different, but I'm talking about Jefferson Street and the downtown primarily. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn with what Dr. Clendenning said in a meeting here, that he did not object when we bonded the TIF areas and extended the life of those, because he understood that the dollars that were being generated from the bond issue would be spent to develop the east side, which would be creating assessed values. A couple of examples of the 2 hotels that are going up right now. And once those are up and running and all the tax breaks kind of cleared out, that's going to be kind of just create a lot of assessed value just in that one area. That's not being tipped. but even in the downtown, I think a lot of values have gone up as a result of the investment. Would be a good doctoral or whatever you call that study to find out what benefits have actually come from, would be a good case study, I think.
It would be really neat. The other thing, you know, I always tell people to consider is when you attract a Kroger Marketplace, a Meijer, and you capture the real property improvements, there's a lot of personal property retail inside those buildings that go to the tax base that, you know, otherwise it never would have materialized but for your activities in the Redevelopment Commission.
And we have the option of collecting personal property taxes, but we don't.
You have that option on manufacturing, development, logistics, things like that. And on some of those, you have selected those over the years. And that would be a recommendation that I would give to you to continue to look at those. When you have those types of personal property taxpayers that you can capture, that's a good way to continue to build your base. But on the retail side, those you can't capture, and those amounts are normally fairly significant. And that automatically goes to the tax base. You get the real property, the tax base gets the personal property. It's a win-win all the way around.
I think the purpose of this exercise is, I think, it's mandated by the state, but it's really, I think, an effort of being transparent of what the impact of some of these TIF areas are.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that misconception that people believe if you get rid of the TIF, all the money goes back dollar for dollar. And that's not the case. And I think this is part of that educational forum to let people know this is really the little amount that goes back as you get rid of TIF districts and allocation areas.
Any other questions, Krista or Jeff? Jeff, we may see you a little bit later in the meeting, but as we talk about the US 31 TIF and what we're attempting to do with the bond issue there as well. But we, as always, we appreciate your good work and guidance in a lot of these important matters.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And there are two other factors that this new law requires that I tell you about. One of them is the long-term plans for the allocation areas. That's part of this new law, and if you'll recall, the allocation areas are not where we are actually allocating anything. It's confusing. But actually where we're collecting and getting real estate taxes. And so we don't have any long-term plans to make any changes to any of the allocation areas. With respect to the development areas, which is where we are spending money, those plans have been online for several years and reported to you at these meetings and city council meetings. Every time there is a change made to that, there were some changes started for the US 31 TIF district. That starts with the Redevelopment Commission, it goes to Planning Commission to check for conformance with the comprehensive plan, then it goes to City Council, and then it comes back to this commission, and we have that US 31 district later on the agenda for that amendment. So there's a US 31 corridor design that's on your agenda, the Youngs Creek redevelopment project area. We did a I-65 interchange plan a couple years ago that has now produced 2 hotels. And then the improved vehicular movement at the McDonald's parking lot and on Paris Drive. The other enhancements to the gateway at the for Franklin from I-65 and coming in from the east side. There was a downtown development plan that's produced so many projects. You could throw a ball anywhere downtown and hit something that's been touched by the downtown development plan. So just in summary, the short story is that we're not proposing any changes to the actual allocation areas or where $2 are being collected, just where to be. So the third and final part of the presentation is to tell you about the budget for our allocated areas, and we don't actually have a formal budget. Instead, we have a working document, and I'll bring that up. Excuse me, there are copies in the audience. And these are connected to our agenda every month. This is the cash flow analysis worksheet. And these are updated every month, and I know they're really hard to read up here. That's why we attach them to the agenda and then also have printed copies for you in the audience. But these are updated every month, and the top part shows approved projects. There's approved projects at the top with the resolution numbers and what's been spent that quarter. And then pending projects are shown at the bottom, which is what we're under consideration, that we're under discussion and considering, and then there's some long-term projects on here as well. And then at the bottom, we have our, in the blue area, we have the estimated fund balances and revenue. So this year, we're currently scheduled to spend more money than we have coming in this year. So we may not be able to do all the projects that are shown, but we have cash and reserves to cover that difference. So this gives you a little bit better picture of our financial state than our monthly financial report does, because our monthly financial report that's on the agenda assumes that everything is spent by the end of the year, which we know is not going to. So I think that this is a little bit, gives you a little more accurate picture. This serves as our basically our working budget. It's adjusted every month. We had a joint meeting at the beginning of the year with the City Council, the RDC, the Board of Works, the FDC, kind of walking everybody through how this plays out. So for example, you'll look here at the TIF bond. So we did a bond in 2015, and there's a line on here for the 2015 TIF bond. So we have two semi-annual payments that we make every year for that. And so for 19, we made a payment at the beginning of the year for $675,000, and a payment at the end will be due in the third quarter for another $675,000. So of that, approximately $4 million in revenue, we owe $1.3 million in our TIF bond repayment each year. So that's basically what I have for you as far as statutory requirements. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think what I'll do is summarize this and also put this on our website, so if anybody wasn't able to make the presentation today, that they are able to find that online if they have any questions.
Any questions from the audience? Comments? Krista, I understand this is the reason that folks like Greg got a notice in the mail, is this it? Mm-hmm. So, and Greg, in no way are we asking you to leave. However, you're more than welcome to stick around. But we wanted to make sure you are aware that this is why, this was the topic of which you were invited. So, thank you. But this is an open book. You're welcome to stick around and see all the other fun we're going to have. We're actually got something kind of interesting coming up next. If there's nothing else on this, we done here?
I am, unless there are any questions.
Okay. We'll move, I'm going to skip way down to item, this is going into new business, item 5H, and ask the mayor to come up and talk about a proposal to sell the property that was just recently acquired by the Redevelopment Commission.
Hey, good morning. I believe that you're talking about item G with mine. Is that right?
Chris always
Okay,
changes the
yeah,
agenda,
it's
and
Okay, it's item H.
it becomes a moving target.
Yeah. What we have, we just bought the sale barn property. Just got closed on it about a month and a half ago. Got possession of it a couple weeks ago. And we said all along that we're going to let the Parks Department take that over, and when we get the amphitheater part done, they'll use that for storage along with DDF. And what we're proposing to do is they buy it for $50,000, and then they're going to put another $50,000 in it and fix it up so it'll be presentable and usable. So I think what we're looking for, the nod to the park board to go ahead and go through their approvals. And Chip is here. He can talk to you in a little bit more detail if you want on what they're going to use it for, but it's basically a storage area. They're not going to work out of it every day. They'll just be storing stuff there. And I think in 2008, they had 6 feet of water in it. In 2017, I don't think it flooded in 2017. It got right to the doors. So they're going to be very careful in what they put in there, and some stuff move up off the ground. So,
Mayor, under your proposal, then the 50,000 will be returned to the
To the-
TIF.
to the redevelopment commission.
Okay. Now, just for the record, we paid about 200,000 for that. So,
That's correct.
yeah. So I think, really, I'm not sure we're looking for formal action here.
No.
But I would say that kind of an indication from members, are you supportive of this move? Personally, I think, our position has always been the redevelopment commission does not hang on to properties. We acquire them, and if we need to redevelop them, we can. But I think in this situation, it's probably best to have it in the hands of the Parks Department. They know what they're going to do with it, and they'll do a good job with it. And it reduces the overhead with on the TIF, out of the TIF funds to do so.
At one point, you had talked about just giving it back to the city, the board of works, and this is a way to get some money back to the TIF.
Any objections? We move ahead with this?
That's 50 from the Parks Department, and 50 from,
No, it's 50 from the Parks Department, and the Parks Department's also going to put another 50,000 in the building, which they'll have $100,000 in it.
so it'll come out of their budget.
Yes. So is there a head nod, or do you want to wait a week or two or a month, or what do you think?
Well, just, we can just, if anybody has any questions or concerns, you can voice them now. I think if there's none, it's kind of maybe a hint that we're kind of supportive of it. I am, just as one member. Folks, chime in.
I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this? We'll move on to another item of business and just keep the mayor up here. And that would be jumping down to, not a big jump, but just a little jump from 5H to down to 6B, which is the discussion on the Lot 4 on the Interstate 65 Gateway development.
Okay, and if everybody remembers when we did the deal with the Spragues, they're working on Taco Bell and Starbucks. They have closed with those properties, and that was the only two lots that we allowed for drive-throughs, windows. And in the last 3 weeks, we've been approached, the Spragues brought, and I have been allowed to, they said we can use the name of it because they're very serious. They need approval from 3 different boards because the way the redevelopment contract is wrote up. They need the approval from the RDC, the FDC, and the Board of Works. Culver's is looking to buy a lot, which would be Lot 4. And they have 65% set-down business, 35% drive-through business. We have met with them here at the office with our planning department, Lynn Gray. So we need to get approval to move forward with that lot.
Chris,
Or that be a drive-through.
I'll pull a copy of it up.
Okay.
Well, this is the addendum. Do you want to, I don't have like the plat that shows where the lots are.
Okay, I don't have that with me. It's
Are we talking about Lot 3 or Lot 4?
Lot 4.
Lot 4.
There's a typo on
Okay.
it. 2 and 3 is Taco Bell and Starbucks.
This is the far south end of the lot where the old liquor store was, and the Culvers will be in the the southeast corner.
Southeast corner
of
there.
their property.
And there is a sit-down restaurant that is interested, which we can't name yet because they don't want to be named, but they didn't want to be there anyway because that is a small lot. They want to be closer to the hotel, where the hotel's a little bit bigger. The lot's a little bit bigger.
Mayor, talk about some of the possibilities. You don't have to list the restaurants, but I know there's ongoing discussions, but they're holding some of the bigger lots closer to the hotel by design, which should be where, if we do land one of these major ones that are desirable, that's kind of where they would want to be. I don't want to have the perception that if we let Culver's take this lot, that they're giving away the best piece.
Now, it is a good lot because it's right there on the corner as you get off the interstate, but it's not the biggest lot. And like I said, there's been 2 major sit-down restaurants. Look over there, and that's not the lot they picked out because it was not big enough. One of the reasons we keep hearing people say, we want a Texas Roadhouse or we want a Cracker Barrel, well, we can't wave the magic wand and make them go there. They are looking, and what the difference is, we need rooftops, they need more traffic. This is going to help with the traffic. And also, when the subdivision is being built over here at Windstar, it's getting added onto with 460 lots. That's going to help with the rooftops that they're looking for. So, and another thing with Culver's, they do a lot of community service. I know that Bob, myself, and Kim Mitten yesterday at the FDC, we had a phone conference with I think his name was Greg Anderson from Brownsburg. I've also spoken with the mayor from in Wisconsin, where Culver's have went about some of their community development work, community partnership they've done with giving back. And Culver's is also willing to go above and beyond the standards out there for building standards. And another thing we've got to keep in mind, what we're asking for today is just approval of this lot for a drive-through of Culver's only. Because if we give approval of the drive-through and then let's say another undesirable, they sell it to another undesirable group, we don't want to be tied to that. So this is just to approve Culver's only for that lot.
I might mention that the mayor talked about a phone conversation that happened yesterday, but there was another meeting a week or so ago that I was invited as the redevelopment representative. And we drilled them pretty good about a number of things. There is a little bit of questions about zoning because it's not in the, doesn't exactly fit the overlay, but because of the drive-in, but I think they're going to try to work with the city on that. But my bigger concerns, and I'm just going to share with you what I kind of drilled down on, and I felt pretty confident after we had the meeting about this. One was, is there going to be any local ownership? And even though it's with a party that's, I think you mentioned Wisconsin, I know they're up north, maybe South Bend or something like that, but there is an owner that's going to have a 20% interest that currently lives, she lives in Greenwood and is actually a co-owner of the one up on 135 near Menards and near Texas Roadhouse up in Greenwood, but she'll be involved in this one down here, so there is some local ownership involved. Does the entity have a reputation for maintaining a clean facility? And I feel satisfied with this. The question I ask, is there going to be oversight of the staff? You know, I know that typically restaurants hire folks that, I'm not going to go into great detail, but they need supervision. And I think I feel comfortable with the response I got from that. There'll be, actually, I think they're more career driven, I think, than most fast food. This is not fast food, but they're more career oriented with benefits and so forth, but there will be supervision on site. With, you know, you mentioned the community partnership. I think they have a good reputation from their other entities that they have, that they're good community partners. In other words, they will give back and they will help support charitable causes here. What I want to try to avoid is, I just don't want to see, we've had them in our own town where you have these franchises that just pop up and 6 months later they're closed. It might be just selling chicken or ice cream or something like that, but that's not what we want there. That's the thing that I want to try to avoid on this property, is having something that's just going to pop up, look dirty, not be clean, maybe be an embarrassment to us. And I feel very comfortable that what I've known about the company and what I've gotten from just having conversations with them, that I think that we'll be fine. And again, you asked some 20 questions of folks, and actually you've done some due diligence by calling the folks up in Brownsburg. Were they satisfied? And they seem very upbeat about what they've seen with this restaurant.
I also talked with Mayor Myers yesterday. There's a Culver's in Greenwood. They haven't had any issues. They do keep their properties clean. Another thing is, when this was put together by the Economic Development, you guys, the economic development agreement that you put together was a good agreement that we have a voice in what goes there. If they want to buy a lot out on US 31, it didn't make any difference. They can go buy a lot and go where they want to go. So we do have a choice on the lots that's left. There's 5 lots. This is one of the 5. There'll be 4 lots left. That is the Sprague's bring people to us, that we would have an opportunity to come to you and the other groups and get the approval for those lots. I will say that there's been a couple other things that has proposed to go there that we didn't bring to you because we didn't think it fit for that economic development area of what we're trying to do. So,
Chris, do you have it, excuse me, Mary, Chris, do you have it pulled up? Is that, can you sort
Well, it's not shown, the lots aren't shown, this is the overall
Right.
parcel,
just
but
kind of where it would be, just kind of a general idea?
I think it's just right at this very
That
corner
one,
here,
as you,
isn't it?
as you come in, that'll be the first one they'll see.
yeah, so the schedule would be, if we get your approval today, the FDC, I think, is next week, and the Board of Works would be July the 1st. And then the Sprague's can go do their thing with culverts to get them to go there. And I think in the next few days, they keep jumping to Starbucks and Taco Bell, we're gonna start construction this thing.
So what we're here to do today then is to approve this request to allow Culver's or to have a drive-in, drive-through.
To allow the Sprague's to start negotiating with the Culver's group. That doesn't mean it's written in stone. They just don't want to waste time if there wasn't an opportunity there.
So we need to identify Culver's by name or just say it's a,
I think so, because we don't, like I said, we don't want something else to go there.
So we would need to amend this addendum, and what I'm assuming is we would give Bob and BJ the authority to sign the amended addendum, which would include not just lots 2 and 3, but lot 4.
For Culver's only, that's lot 4.
Yeah.
Richard?
Yes, Mayor, did they do the due diligence of traffic flow? That's a unique piece of property, it's kind of a unique way to get into those 3.
They did,
All 3 of them are gonna have drive-throughs, so in and out, and then getting back onto the stoplight.
yeah, they did, and actually the real estate agent has got a real nice program put together to explain all that.
And they'll still have to go through our regular site plan review process where all that's reviewed and evaluated as well.
And that was one of the things we talked about when they sat down with us in our planning department.
I think one of the other things they talked about in our meeting was that it's going to be hard to find a restaurant that's not going to have some sort of drive-through. You see, they went on to say that, and I had to verify this, but a lot of restaurants that traditionally may not have had drive-ups are starting to have those today. There's some kind of capability to do that. Again, I don't consider it Texas Roadhouse for this property because they're looking for bigger, if they're not coming here, but if there was a similar type of thing, they would be looking for one of those bigger properties closer to the hotel, to the Hampton Inn property.
I've actually had a conversation with Texas Roadhouse, that if they decide to come here, they have picked out a lot that they would be interested in.
They have.
And it's not this one.
So essentially what we're looking for today is approval of this body to allow this Culver's at this location.
To start talking with the Sprague's to go there if they come to an agreement.
Okay.
So you're looking for a motion?
I think it needs to be formal, yes. Yeah, I think, okay, we can, let's get a motion, and then what we can do is open it up for a public hearing, and then we'll have comment and shut that down, and then not shut it down, but close that, and then go to a vote here as well. So I guess we're looking for a motion then to permit Culver's to work with the Sprague's to acquire this lot with the understanding that they're going to be putting in a Culver's restaurant at that location on lot 4 in that I-65 gateway development, which will allow for a drive-up.
I would make a motion to allow the Sprague's to enter an agreement with Culver's for the Interstate 65 Gateway development with the drive-up window
Specifically in lot 4, Chair.
on lot 4.
Sorry, I just don't want to establish a precedent of changing this agreement with this area. That, I mean, it was designed to where we weren't going to have a whole lot of drive-throughs and make it a fast-moving mecca. So I want to make sure it's as clear as possible that we're very focused on this particular motion.
I don't think we want to say lot, drive up. There should be another window there, so. But anyway, I think we get the gist of it here. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
All right, now we'll open it up for public hearing at this time.
Your agreement only allowed for your master agreement only allowed for 2 drive-ups in that area. This third one, that's why it's requiring an addendum.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what you're voting on.
Okay. Any discussion, questions, comments? If none, we'll close the public hearing. There's still open discussion here amongst the RDC members. But if not, I'll call for a vote if there's no questions or comments. Those in favor of approval of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved.
Thank you.
Now, this has to actually go through also the Board of Works and the Franklin Development Corporation as well. So we're not the only body that has that. Mayor, there's one other item here that I think we want to try to catch while you're still here. And that is item 6E, which is federal city-funded projects update. And I think each of the members have gotten a handout. Are these available to the public?
There's plenty of copies in the audience. I'll bring it up on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, the reason that Krista and I talked about doing this, we're always talking about the funds that the Redevelopment Commission, infrastructure projects that we do, that the Redevelopment Commission does for the city, and we just thought it was good to communicate. What I believe I'm a pretty good communicator, and big on that I wanted to come to you and let you know that the city, the Board of Works, we're also spending a lot of money in infrastructure projects. For example, we did get a community crossings grant this year of $1 million from the state, and we have to match that, and it's coming out of our MVH fund, Motor Vehicle and Highway, Board of Works fund, and local road and street. So that's our match where we're getting the other $1 million. That's $2 million worth of paving that we're doing there. And then the next line where we have contracted alley work, it's already been completed. The city's done $400,000 worth of alley work this year. Actually, we're doing $2.2 million worth of paving. That's the next line. That's $200,000 over what our matching grants were. The roundabout, we come in $300,000 over the estimated price with the roundabout, and the Board of Works is picking up the $300,000. We didn't come back to the RDC to ask to change the resolution. Then the Main Street parking lot is the same thing. It's $27,000 over the engineering's estimate. We didn't come back. We're going to cover that. The city just an active adult center bus we just bought. We have, just getting off subject a little bit, the active adult center is something that's very dear to all of us. They have over 500 members and short on transportation, so we bought them a bus. The amphitheater, the Board of Works has already started with the amphitheater permitting process, so we can tear the buildings down in the flood buyout area. That's $100,000. So just that alone, that's $3,077,000 worth of work the Board of Works is doing. And then we're looking at potential projects that we may or may not do this year. Paris Estates concrete, where it's busting up, $250,000. We are looking at, there's a matching grant with the railroads, for the Hope County, and we're somewhere, our matching part is gonna be about $250,000. And I know since every city has had accidents with railroads, they're looking to move that up to get the arms put out this year. I know they're working on the engineering part of that, the railroad is. That's about another $250,000 that the city will be paying. The Redevelopment is road maintenance, crack seals, road maintenance, dumpster enclosures, a couple areas where we see dumpsters everywhere in alleys, and we're looking to enclose those, working with business owners to make that happen. It's $100,000. So if we could do all that this year, it'd be $4.9 million total. And where those funding sources come from, in 2016, we had a special distribution that's left over from $366,405.17. That is to be used for paving. When Mayor McGinnis first got that, I think we used it, we bought vehicles, did some road paving. This part was left over, so we decided to use that on this year's paving project. And then this year, we also, in 2019, we got a local income tax special distribution, $522,495. We're going to use that on those projects. And then last night, we just approved take $775,000 out of our rainy day fund. And then the Board of Works is making up another $175,000. So where did that, in our current rainy day balance, after we take the rainy day appropriation out, we still have $3.9 million in the rainy day. So we're doing well, and as the potential projects that we have to do this year, they may or may not, but the money's appropriated. And if we don't do that, we simply carry it over to next year or put it back in the rainy day fund. So I just wanted to communicate with you gentlemen. I know that you feel like sometimes you're doing all the work in Franklin, and I want you to know what the Board Works and the city itself does. So we're a good team. We're going to continue to move Franklin forward. So I got one more thing before I have to leave and go to a meeting. I want to go back to, if you don't mind, Bob, I'm hijacking your meeting just a little bit. Is that okay?
It's not you appointment.
It's under new business, and I have an E on mine. And I apologize for jumping around. It's actually E, okay. Item E, yes. The resolution for the Franklin US 31 TIF district. That has to do with the bond. And, you know, I've said all along that when we go do the bond, and I talked to Mr. Peters here, I didn't want to commit to a bond and go do the engineering for the state project that we're going to do without having some kind of commitment. So I reached out to the state and told them we need something in writing that we're going to do this project on US 31. And I got an email, and I think you guys got a copy of that, giving us they've already got project numbers of the projects that they're getting approved through their system. And they're just about there. They have $33 million worth of work already approved. And I know we said it's going to be somewhere around $40 to $45 million. There's still some more stuff they have to approve, but they've already approved $33 million worth of it. So I think it would be for us to wait. I know it takes them a little bit of time, and this work that they're going to do is for 2023, 2024, but we're paying for the engineering part of it, and we need to go ahead and move forward with the engineering part. So that's why we need to go ahead and adopt the bond. I know it's already been, this went through all the other boards, and Krista and you and Jeff can go more into that. I just want to make you aware that I did reach out to ex-Mayor McGinnis, Commissioner McGinnis, and District Deputy Commissioner Anthony McKellen to get this document. So we know it's going to happen. It's not just something that we're talking about. That's not going to happen. So I feel real comfortable about go ahead and moving forward with paying for the engineering of it. So that's all I have to say about it. Is you got any questions for me?
Mr. Mayor, can I go back to the Shrewsbury amphitheater thing that was $100,000?
Yes.
Is that design, does that include design work? Is that going to be done? RDC owns that, so are we going to, normally we would be paying for the design work, but I think part of this is it just kind of an estimate of what it's going to take to get the permits and get some of that torn down?
It's a preliminary design work, so they can go ahead and get with DNR
Okay.
on the preliminary design, and the DNR can evaluate it and then tell us when we can tear it down, which I'm being told that as soon as we get the information into them, that within 30 days, they will give us permission to tear down the building.
There won't be a full-blown design on the proposed amphitheater or the surrounding area?
I think the full contract's about $350,000 somewhere.
That'll probably come out of the bond issue then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we need to get permission from DNR to get that going, so that's to expedite that, so, okay. All right, any questions of the mayor on any of these matters? If done, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll get back on the scheduled agenda in its order. And Chris King has joined us for an update on the Shell building.
Chris King with Norwell Construction, and just wanted to give you an update, kind of talk through where we're at as far as the Shell building is concerned. We had a couple of prospects where we were put some siding on hold for the building, and we checked our orders on those, and we're still about a little over a month out on siding being delivered to the site. So there's just been some long lead times on those items. Once we get the siding delivered, we're looking at about a month and a half to get the building finished siding-wise, about 2 months total to do all the landscaping and that type of thing. We've considered potentially going ahead and doing the paving out there. Part of our concern with that is just damaging pavement through construction activities on site. So it'd be our preference to hold off on that until after we get that siding going. That's essentially where we are with things at this point in time. We are going to go out there as soon as we can get a dry day at this point and really get a handle on cleaning up the site, making sure it's mowed and it looks better. Additionally, we're going to put up a new sign out there. I think one of the questions that's come up before, is the building for sale or not for sale, or had it been taken before? So we wanted to get that taken care of too, and we're just continuing to work with JCDC and the mayor as opportunities come along and attempt to sell the building at this point.
I think it's kind of our position. I'm just speaking for myself here, but we've held off again, like you explained, because we had the amazing booth that they wanted to finish it themselves, and we had a possible prospect similar to that. But I think now, probably a point where we're going to go ahead and just get the thing to a point where we got the other one. And so if we get any prospects, I'm not sure that we're going to be very anxious about holding off of any, unless it's really something that looks promising. Or I mean, these others did too, but I know we're hearing there's some urgency probably to get this thing to a point where we can sell it.
It looks like, from what you said, in September, you're gonna be enclosed, paving, and ready to actively market the project.
As a completed building, yes. We're actively marketing it every day. I mean, we've had a number of different prospects that we've talked to, and I'm continuing to try to get the word out there as much as we can about it, because we're seeing a lot of activity on these types of buildings right now.
Anything we can do to assist in the process, or?
You guys have been, extremely helpful in time of getting anything. You've been there, and the mayor is there all the time. To take calls and to have, those kind of conversations. So we appreciate that. That works well.
There's just a question. Is the impact of the contamination in Franklin hindering the sale of this property?
So I've not had that come up with anybody we've had any conversations about. It's not been any past discussion at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Chris? We appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.
And keep us posted. We'll be anxious to watch for progress out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we have a resolution for, looks like an overreach on the Benjamin's Alley, and our city engineer joining us. Mark?
Good morning. For the record, Mark Richards, city engineer. This first item is a change order that was approved last year for the Benjamin's Alley reconstruction. The contractor encountered quite a bit of concrete that was an unknown below the asphalt in the alley. That added his cost. So he has requested, or he did request a change order in the amount of $5,800. His actual cost was about double that, so we felt like it was appropriate to share the cost in it.
Yeah.
Okay. You recommending, I think the city's recommending that we
That's
pick
correct.
that up.
Yes.
We're pretty much done with the project now, aren't we?
The project is complete.
I understand the results are pretty favorable too.
Looks great. In addition, Andy, the building owner next door, has also repaved his parking lot with concrete, and so it's really coming along.
I had the I guess duty or pleasure of joining for at least part of the day last week when the Redevelopment Association of Indiana came to town, and we were walking from Point A, which is Old Artcraft, over this way, and we crossed the alley behind, adjacent to the Artcraft in this alley, and all of them made comments of how neat that was, these pedestrian alleys that we have. So I think the results of this turned out. On this one, we need a motion, I think, to read by title only, and then we'll need a public hearing and then a motion for approval of the resolution. Okay, so we have a motion to read by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll open up for a public hearing.
The only thing that might change on that particular item, it's one of the potential areas for the dumpster enclosures, is that correct, on the east end of that alley?
It is, but the dumpster enclosures, the mayor included that in his presentation, that would not be paid for through.
Right, yeah, this would complete this entire project. It'd be,
And I believe the dumpster enclosure is going in the parking lot and not the alley itself. Is that correct, Krista?
It's not the alley itself, it's the property owned by the Wood,
Yes.
Andy and Leslie Wood, and it would be an easement agreement with them.
Any other questions, comments? We'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion for approval of the resolution.
second.
Okay, a motion by Deppie and a second by Eggers. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution approved. Okay, now we've got an update on the Eastview Drive and Upper Shelbyville Road roundabout.
Yes, this is also a change order in the amount of $42,170.62. Not sure if you're aware of the background, but this change order is a result of delays caused by a utility company. CenturyLink was obligated to relocate their facilities by March 31st of 2018. They did not actually show up on site to do any of the work until about mid-June, which ended up causing delays to our contractor. The contractor has submitted a claim for the amount I described. I can tell you that Ms. Gray has submitted an invoice to CenturyLink for not only this change order, but another one in the roughly amount of $9,000. So a $51,000 to $52,000 invoice has been sent to CenturyLink. I don't know if we've received payment or not yet. That was approximately a month ago when that invoice went out. So we hope to recover those costs, but we do have to pay those costs to the contractor.
So in the meantime, we pay the contractor and then seek to recover the monies elsewhere.
That's correct.
Okay, so on this one, again, we need a motion to read by title only, and then we'll have a public hearing on this, and then approval of the motion.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. We'll open it up for a public hearing. I think, I don't know who can do this, maybe Krista or Mark, maybe just flag this thing, so maybe in about 60 days we can get an update just to see, because it'll end up being maybe an account receivable somewhat, maybe a circle back to just see what the resolution of this was. I'm sure we'll get an update on it, but maybe we can.
It'll be reflected in your financial report. I'll
Okay.
make sure to note that when it's received.
I'm not sure what the likelihood of getting reimbursed is, but hopefully we'll get that. But that if we don't, then that becomes a legal issue that the city has to deal with, so.
That's correct.
Okay. Any discussion amongst, any comments, public? If not, close the public hearing and ask for a motion for approval of the resolution to pay the amount.
Move to approve resolution 2019-33.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Eggers and second by Bunie. Any discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution's approved. And now we'll move to resolution 2019-34. Mark?
And I believe this is my final item. It's a change order for the King Street project in the amount of $41,070. This was submitted by Milestone Contractors to account for a need to tap into a water line at 2 locations and to install backflow preventers for the irrigation system on the project. There was an irrigation system designed for the initial phase. It was submitted as a cost change to the original contractor to install that system. The city felt the cost was excessive, and so the irrigation system was not installed at that time. This change order is for the most recent phase of King Street. The intent was to connect with the irrigation system that was to be installed with the initial phase. Since that work was not done, we had to do the water line tap and backflow preventers in the lines. This cost would have been borne in the original contract for the first phase, but since that was not constructed, then we had to do it with this phase. We will be able to connect into this existing line, so we won't have that similar cost if we decide to extend the irrigation system to the original phase of the project.
So essentially, we decided not to do the irrigation, and then we've come back and said, we're going to do the irrigation, so.
Well, we decided not to do it in the first phase, but in this phase, it was designed in the plans from the beginning, and therefore it was in the bid. However, the connection to the water line was not, so we had to have that.
Okay, once again, we'll need a motion to read by title only, so we can get it to a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion by Deputy and second by Works. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved, and we'll have a public hearing on this resolution. Ready? Take your chance.
Nothing to add.
All right.
So, Mark, this entire project overall, the King Street project, came in under budget, though, is that correct?
This phase of King Street is in approximately $200,000 under on the construction budget. So we will have some cost savings. We expect to be able to move those to another project within the city. This is funded by relinquishment funds. There are also some savings in the inspection fees. So there's going to be roughly about $250,000 in savings, and that includes
That's after
after this is taken into account.
Great point. Okay, any other discussion?
Just one question, out of curiosity, what's the anticipated completion date for the stretch of King Street between Forsyth and Liverpool?
I'll tell you the contractual date, October 15th.
I believe that the contractual date will be met.
I believe that the contractual date will be, we will be dead early.
Thank you.
Nothing else, so we'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion for approval of the resolution.
I move to approve resolution 2019-34.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Eggers and a second by Buning. Those in favor, say, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution approved. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
I think they're moving along pretty well on it, aren't they? They got the road bed pretty much completed. and the
They're
curbing.
working on curb and driveway approaches now, so yes, they are moving along well, and I would expect a fairly significant savings in time,
Weather dependent.
weather permitting.
But you're not gonna hang out a date for us, are you? October 15th.
Or before.
That's contractual, I know. I understand what you're doing.
Well, I will share that when we closed both Forsyth and King Street at the same time, the contractor indicated to us that he would be able to meet the completion date by about 30 days. I think that was conservative, so we may be looking at even sooner.
Good. Good, thank you. Okay, now the next two resolutions have to do with the US 31 TIF and what's going on with the Youngs Creek redevelopment. So we have Rick Hall here from Barnes and Thornburg. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Krista, anything that you want to introduce here to tell everybody why Rick's here? Or Jim?
I think we can handle it.
And I just would like to introduce the members of the Redevelopment Authority. They're here today. We have Josh Prime, who was voted the president. Thank you, Josh. Bobby Amin, I think you were secretary, and then Les Tabling, and was vice president. So 3 positions and 3 members. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. As you know, back in March, the Redevelopment Commission adopted a resolution that expanded the boundaries of the economic development area, the US 31 economic development area, and it also added to the economic development plan 2 projects, the road project that was discussed earlier by the mayor, and then also the amphitheater project. That, as Krista indicated earlier, that resolution went to the Plan Commission and the City Council. It was also approved by each of those bodies. It is now back for you for a public hearing and final approval.
This is the process that we're going through for the bond issue.
That's right. In order to be able to spend the bond proceeds on these projects, we need to have them incorporated in the economic development plan. It's important to note that the amendments that are being made today expand the boundaries of the economic development area for which you can spend the money, but there's no additional TIF that's being captured as a result of this resolution.
Okay, what action do we need to take today on this?
You need to.
Just a public hearing. So we'll do read by title only then? Okay,
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to read by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this relates to the confirmatory resolution 2019-35. So in motion, you get that, Julie? Okay. We'll open it up for a public hearing. I think what we're planning on doing right now, somebody smack my hands if I'm getting out of line. We're looking at about a $10 million bond issue on this. About half of that, or maybe slightly half, would go to pay the design fees on the 31 project. And then the other half would go to whatever's left will go toward the Youngs Creek development. That may not cover all the expenses of developing that, particularly if it includes an amphitheater, but we won't know until after the design work is done and the estimates are obtained. So I don't think we should let people think that this is going to cover everything, but it's going to at least, I think, allow us to get the area down there with trails and kind of help with the cleaning up.
Yeah, we're looking at different phases as far as the amphitheater. There's a trail system, and then there's the the shelter areas. There's a couple parking lots, additional parking lots. There's festival area, 2 festival areas, and also a playground. And so the biggest thing is the pedestrian bridge connection from the south side of the creek to the north side of the creek, and that would be a big expense. And so,
Are we thinking about that?
yeah, we are. That'll be all designed, part of the design for sure. It just may be phases of the project as funding becomes available that we can do all of those things there. We've looked at other communities and what they've paid, and I'd like to think 5 million would be enough to cover that, but I don't think it will be.
Would that bridge cover the abandoned railroad? Is that where that would be?
Yes,
And that would connect to the Greenway potentially,
on the south side, yeah.
create a bridge,
Literally.
other than road
Yes.
bridges.
Yes, pedestrian, it would be a pedestrian bridge.
Did I call for a public hearing on this? Are we in that phase? We're in a public hearing thing. Been a lot of back and forth here. Any other comments, questions? We'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-35.
I move to approve resolution 2019-35.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. And that's a big step for us in this process. We're probably, another few months, 3 or 4 months out on the bond issue being completed?
Earliest would be August.
Okay, so we're not that far away then. No, we're close. And once we get that, then we'll have 3 years to spend it.
Correct.
Okay. Not the other one, okay. All right.
So the next item is the approval of a lease that serves as a financing mechanism, and this is resolution number 37, 2019-37. And as Krista mentioned, we have here the Redevelopment Authority because the way that the financing is going to be structured, the Redevelopment Authority will actually issue debt, and they will enter into a lease with the Redevelopment Commission, and the Redevelopment Commission will pay lease rentals that will then pay off the Redevelopment Authority's debt. And the reason we do that is that there's going to be a source of security of the city's income taxes that's pledged to it, and that would constitute debt of the city, and we need the lease mechanism because of the debt limit. So the thought is that these bonds would be payable from TIF revenues, but to give a stronger credit to the bonds and a better interest rate for the community, that we would put, there's a pledge of the income taxes that the city council has made towards this lease. So both the Redevelopment Authority and the Redevelopment and the City Council have approved this. It's before the before the Redevelopment Commission for a public hearing and its approval. It would provide the financing mechanism for the bond issue that would be around $10 and $10.5 million.
Okay. What we need at this point is a motion to read by title only, and then we'll move both documents in for a public hearing then. So,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to read by title only. Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Now we'll open it up for a public hearing. And one of the things we want to make sure of is that there's sufficient cash flows off the 31 TIF to make sure that these bond payments can be made so that the city doesn't have to step in and do that. That's why we rely on Jeff to assist us with that. And I think you're pretty comfortable where we are with.
I would like me to talk a little bit about
Yeah, I think it'd be good to go on record with that.
What's the property tax on this resolution? Resolution number 2019-36.
36.
It's 19,081.1% property tax related to Yellow Creek.
I'm on resolution 37. Sorry.
If you printed the agenda off, Richard, it's been updated since, we've got another item there. I did the same thing.
So 36 then is void?
No, it's a separate issue.
It'll be another thing. Yeah, you've got another item on the agenda. We get these in advance, so I print them out, and generally there's a last minute insertion made, and so it,
All my fault.
no, it's nobody's fault, it's just we want to get this in there, but I rely on what I print. That's why I acted a little confused a minute ago, but it's updated here, what you get, so. Jeff, go ahead, let's take just a minute. I know we're going a little long today, but we need to probably get this on record.
And I know we had spoken about this earlier conceptually, but the two TIF districts that you established on US 31, south where the Kroger Marketplace is, north where the Meyer is, both of those beginning this year with the developments that are in place, in the ground, fully taxable, are going to produce about $800,000 for the year. The lease that you have before you asks you to approve approximately $675,000 a year for the lease, which would pay the principal and interest on the bonds as they become due. One of the securities that we wanted to provide out of that revenue stream was coverage at about 125%. And then, as Rick mentioned, we needed additional security before that, and I know we talked about this the last time. Because there are so few parcels in those two TIF districts, we're going to need additional security. They can't just stand alone and be an adequate security for bonds of this size and this length. So in order to give the additional security, get the best interest rates, the city has agreed to pledge its income tax revenue if at any point in time these amounts would be insufficient. So my comfort level at this point is really good for the fact that we have at least 125% coverage, or approximately that, based on the current revenue flow. We still have a project going in the ground right now in front of the Meyer that will produce additional increment. There's another lot in front of the Kroger that is to be developed. And I think there are a couple lots to the north of Meyer yet to be developed. So as those come online, you'll have this additional revenue. Now, also, as Chris has talked about projects, this will give you about $10 million in bond proceeds to go forward with the engineering, the amphitheater. But you'll also have probably $100,000 to $150,000 a year in additional money coming forward that you can spend on that annual basis toward some of these other projects or toward other projects that are inside the redevelopment plan for the north and south areas.
I hadn't thought about the additional income being spent once the bond's done.
Well, it's not even when the bonds are done, it just has to be pledged from year to year to be there as the coverage. But you can spend that every year after it's not been expended or needed to pay principal and interest as it became due. And currently in that fund, I think there's about $500,000. Does that sound right, Chris?
I think it's more than that. I'd have to look, but
Okay.
yeah.
So, today you've actually got a fairly good chunk of change in there as well to begin any of those planning projects, et cetera.
So you're saying the risk we run is that you've got two big stores, Meyer and Kroger, and one of them should default, which I think is unlikely, then that would create a lot of stress on the,
Yeah, and the first thing we would do is eat that 25% coverage. And then if that was not sufficient, then the city would step in with their income taxes. One of the questions I was asked as well, since we serve as a financial advisor to the city, is could they withstand that? And they can. And current projections, they are operating in a surplus every year. So they have money that they can take out of their income tax and pledge toward the debt service shortfall.
Okay.
There's also will be a year worth of payments put in reserves through that bond.
Potentially, we haven't decided exactly how we're going to fund that, whether it's going to be reserved or like a surety bond, but
I know we did that for the 2015 bond. So
yeah, there's $1 million set aside in the 15 bond for principal and interest if it is ever needed.
Okay. Are we in a public hearing mode again? I lose track of this. Have I declared that?
You did.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion while we're in the public hearing? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask for a motion for approval of, I gotta go to the screen instead of my printed copy, of the resolution and the lease agreement, which needs to be signed today as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
The resolution authorizes you to sign the lease agreement.
okay. So hopefully we'll get everybody together if this is approved and have everybody sign. So essentially, we're approving the resolution
Yes.
and the lease.
Yeah, Rick has that finalized lease agreement for everybody's signature.
Okay.
The only additional thing I wanted to say about the lease agreement, when we pass this, if we so choose, the last page, Appendix I, is blank in terms of payment dates and amounts. So if and when we do pass this, I think it needs to be, Jim, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it needs to be with the understanding that will be modified to include amounts and dates. Is that correct?
Yeah, the form of lease is set up to say that when you sell bonds, you'll sign an addendum to the lease that sets forth the lease rentals.
Okay.
And those lease rentals will be based on the actual amount of debt service at the time we sell the bonds.
Which is impossible to know now.
Which is possible to know now. What it does say in the main body of the lease is that those lease rentals won't exceed $675,000
Yeah,
a year.
Thank you.
Also on that, they'll be structured so that it cash flows. And
Right.
we get those receipts, we make the payment.
Yeah, similar to the 15 that we're doing currently.
Okay.
Jim, I asked you a question to remind you, I'm a simple man, and I use 675, I know the potential is less. That comes out to approximately a 15-year payment, and I made an assumption that didn't include the interest.
Correct.
That includes the interest and the principal.
No, as I worked out what you did, I understood what you said, which is that $10 million divided by a $675,000 lease payment would be 15 years. That is principal only.
That's what I
So
thought.
the interest would be the other potential $6,875,000, which the last run I saw, we were closer to about 640 rather than 675. But again, until we get to market, we want to make sure we've got flexibility to execute.
Long-term rates have gone down, haven't they?
Yeah, they're looking good, really
They're
good.
looking good for us, for the city anyway.
And I just want the record, to show us about $6 million in interest, and we run this through 2044 if we take the full 25 years
Yes.
to pay. So as we look, that's a long step into the future, and it's an immediate need, and I think it's critical that we do all of it. I just want us to be aware of the cost and what we're doing to the US 31 TIF. That's only going to leave us a little over $125,000 per year to invest in other projects or accumulate for other projects.
So are you looking at a 25-year repayment period?
Yes,
Is that what you're looking at? Okay.
and that's the maximum that you can go to.
What did we go to on the East Side project? Wasn't that like 15 years?
I think
But I thought it was longer than
I
that.
thought it was
Do you
20.
recall?
That was 20,
20?
For the record, I don't plan to be on this board. It's
None of the people here are probably going to be, but we're committing our RDC and city to this project.
Well, I'm sure I'll wear my welcome out long before that period of time comes along. So. Okay, so we've gone through the public hearing of this, and so we need we have not made a motion, so we need a motion for approval of, go back up here, the resolution and the lease agreement.
I move to approve Resolution 2019-37 and the accompanying lease agreement with Redevelopment Authority, with the understanding that Appendix I will be updated once those bonds get issued.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Eggers and second by Bunin. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any any dissension? Motion approved. Rick and Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't think we at this point really realize what, like alluding to what Richard said, the impact that this design work, when the state does its job 23 and 24, how we'll transform that whole area all the way from Norwood south of town. So it's going to be a big deal. This is a big deal. We won't see the results of this for a few years, but maybe in the
I guess one other question, Jeff. We have to spend the money in 3 years, and we're talking about the road in 23, 24. If I remember the ball, we have to spend or actually spend the money in 3 years.
Yeah, and you're paying for the engineering up front. So your amount is gonna be paid, that $4.5 or $5 million.
And then the other part down here has to be paid in 3 years.
Yeah, the stuff you're gonna do for the amphitheater, you'll be doing that across this next 3-year period. I assume you'll go through all those proceeds, because the rest of the development on 31 is all gonna be picked up by the state at that later date.
So we have till 23 to spend it.
You have it till summer of 2022.
Yeah. Oh, we should close in August, so August, end of July.
So 22. Somebody's got a lot of work to do.
given our past history, I think we'll find a way to spend it, so. There's some good stuff, I think, just waiting to happen essentially once we get this done, so it'll be a good thing. And once again, we want to thank those members that have, I guess, volunteered to serve on the redevelopment authorities.
Yes, if you just would all of RDC and RDA, make sure you sign that document before you leave.
So RDC members need to stick around too. Okay.
Just the president and the secretary of the RDC.
All right, BJ, you can't hold out here, so.
Can't go back to my office.
Not yet. All right.